just like to start actually just by saying thank you to the Databricks team for making this and for hosting this absolutely wonderful event and for looking after me. So Pritesh, Zahil, thank you. Thank you. I'm absolutely loving being in San Francisco, so thank you for that. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Paul Sinclair, Head of Data Exploitation at DEFRA. I'll say a little bit more about who DEFRA are in a second, so don't worry. I'm going to talk about some of the work that we've been doing with Databricks and the journey that we're on, and it's very much on, particularly after today's announcements. We kind of feel like we've got a long way to go still. But to kind of build and provide that data analytics capability for analysts and data scientists across our organization. And I'm going to kind of highlight some of the projects in a bit more detail and also give a hint at kind of where I think we might kind of take this in the short, medium, and long term. But I'm going to spoil it by saying it. Obviously, I've set these slides up without knowing some of the announcements that are coming, so they're going to look a little bit dated now, so bear with me. Okay, so we've got the forward-looking statement. So you know the drill. So DEFRA Group, okay? So the UK central government department who looks after the environment, farming, and rural affairs. So a really kind of critical, kind of fundamental brief that touches on nearly every aspect of our daily lives, thinking about the quality of the water that we drink, the food that we eat, and the air that we breathe. So pretty fundamental, a really wide-ranging remit, and I'll show you our governance, a little snippet of our governance structure in a second, just to give you an idea of the scale of the organization when you factor in all the different partner organizations that we work with. Thinking about our kind of priority outcomes, cleaning up Britain's rivers, lakes, and seas, maximizing the value of our natural resources, ensuring nature's recovery, and supporting farmers to boost food security, and improving our nation's resilience to the dangers of flooding. So an absolutely huge cross-cutting remit. Primary focus is about kind of leaving the environment in a better place for the next generation. Okay, and that's just to give you an idea of scale of the organization. So whilst we have a central department, we've got some executive agencies who have their own kind of core briefs, some non-departmental and other public bodies. So in total, I think there are about 35 different agencies and public bodies that are part of the DEFRA group. So hopefully that gives you an idea of some of the scale that we're kind of talking about. When thinking about kind of the business need and making it easier for our analysts and scientists to exploit data, I hope I've already given you an indication just with that previous graphic about the scale of the challenge. Our people, really diverse and dispersed, diverse in so many different ways in terms of their priorities and their focus, the tools that they're using, the skill sets that they have, and no central approach to kind of skills and capability across all of those different business units. So again, you can kind of hopefully get a sense of the challenge. Our data is highly federated, stored in multiple places and formats. I'm sure if you've been to many presentations over the last day or two, you've heard several other organizations talking about exactly the same thing. We constantly get told that from our analysts that finding and accessing the right data and understanding its quality and lineage is incredibly difficult. The other thing to bear in mind is that all of those business units are also, in some cases, their own legal entities. So when you're thinking about data licensing and data sharing, it's a real kind of sort of problem to try and solve because there's some interconnectivity, but also each organization is kind of negotiating on their own right. So we've got to try and overcome some of those challenges as well. And I'll say a little bit about how we've done that. But big issue is that we're not really exploiting the data that we've got. And then in terms of the technology, a few years ago, not really fully exploiting cloud, lots of legacy tools, lots of multiple, you'll all know, the Access database that somebody's been supporting for 20 years, or the Excel spreadsheet. Many, many examples of that. And that gave us a lack of interoperability and lack of scalability, but also meant that there was no central platform for analysts to collaborate on what are more often than not multi-agency problems. So this is where Dash comes in, so Data Analytics and Science Hub, with our vision there for transforming data science and analysis across DEFRA Group. And we've come at it from three perspectives, kind of real big focus on business change, training and enablement, because we know that without that, we won't successfully land the changes that we're making. Big focus on data, making that data easier to find and access and to reuse. And I'll say a little bit more again about the work that we're doing there. And building and scaling the Dash platform. So analysts across that really diverse group can work either within their teams or across their teams and across their organizations to innovate with data. And this is where we are right now. So I'll say a little bit about the platform itself. I think we're trying to consolidate around some common tools. So Databricks is at the heart of that. And Unity Catalog, again, is kind of something that we're looking to generate even more value out of. We've also got other tools alongside that from Posit and from Microsoft. So thinking about Azure Machine Learning, just to give our analysts some choice around how they work, and also try and get and benefit from the integrations that are coming with Posit and Databricks. Again, I'll say a little bit more about the work that we're doing in the short term on that in a second. But in terms of the value that we're delivering, making it easier for analysts to discover data and access it, providing that scalable compute, providing that advanced analytical tooling, which is supporting that collaborative data science across the organization. Got a really strong kind of governance layer in place now. And we're really kind of advocating that and driving that through the support and enablement and the guides and the training that we're, so it really is a holistic offer. It's not just about kind of standing up some technology. As you might imagine, lots of challenges along the way. I've already talked about the diversity of our user base, and in particular, that kind of we've got analysts who are much more confident coding, others less so. I think I'll talk a little bit about kind of the RStudio offer on Databricks, for example, where that has felt for some of our analysts quite a big leap to make, kind of going from desktop RStudio to the RStudio hosted on Databricks. That's been something that we've really had to think about how we approach that problem. Tools like Unity Catalog, when we've been thinking about adopting it kind of 12, 18 months ago, wasn't quite where we needed it to be at the time, but working in partnership with Databricks has meant that it's now in a much better place to meet our organizational needs. Because we're operating at such a scale across so many, are looking to operate at such scale across so many different DEFRA Group organizations, that's started to really push the boundaries of our operating model as well. Not all of those organizations that I kind of introduced you to at the start share our IT. So when we're trying to build a common platform and a central platform, that really makes us have to think quite critically about how we approach things, and that has really sort of extended the limits of our operating model. It's also trying to drive that flexibility that users want, whilst also trying to optimize costs and try and get control of that so they don't go out of the window. So we've really had to think again about how we monitor, and again, working in partnership with Databricks and with Microsoft, that's really kind of helped us. So what I'm talking about here is just some of the kind of critical success factors. I think some of these are things that we went into this with our eyes open, other things that we've really learnt along the way. As I said, really thinking about that business change and kind of planning that up front and really kind of investing quite heavily in that, because that is really hard. And keeping at it, that's absolutely critical. Working with the business team, so my team in our sort of DDAT, central sort of digital function, works really closely with the business team, so in our science and analysis group. And that is quite challenging because we come at things from different perspectives, but also it helps us to drive better outcomes. So that's absolutely key. And working with the user community, they're often ahead of the curve, ahead of us in terms of the tools that they want and how they want things to be. So bringing them into the process as early and as often as possible is absolutely critical. And being able to access the right skills across our partner network as well. So I will name drop kind of Databricks, POSIT, and Microsoft a few times, but their support has been absolutely critical to helping us go forward and building those partnerships with the vendors who kind of understand the direction that we want to go in and are able to lean in and offer us that support. And just on that, in terms of thinking about working with our partners, really strong alignment kind of with Databricks and Microsoft in particular about in terms of our technology strategy plays to our strengths around thinking about Azure, where the majority of we are a multi-cloud environment, but the majority of our engineers are Azure based, and when we're thinking about kind of platform engineering and data engineering, so that was also a critical factor. But the strongest kind of thing was really working with those vendors who give us the opportunity to experiment, but also support that enablement. So really helping us to drive the use cases and generate the value from these use cases going forward. And increasingly, those relationships that Databricks have with POSIT, Databricks have with Microsoft, again, has been absolutely critical, has really helped us to drive the platform forward. And this is where we are just in terms of the impact that we've had so far. And this has been a multi-year journey. This hasn't happened overnight. It's been something that we've worked really hard at and had to invest in. But just to kind of call out some kind of key headlines from that, I'd estimate we've probably got a target market across the group of maybe up to 1,500 analysts, so 12 to 1,500 analysts and scientists of different types across the organisation. As things stand, we've got over 850 registered to use the platform, and that spans across 9 of those organisations. So looking forward, we obviously want to drive adoption and usage of the platform, but also increase our footprint in terms of the number of DEFRA organisations that we have. You can see a big focus there on training, and a big focus again on the number of data sets that we've onboarded. So almost 200 of the department's kind of critical kind of core data sets, and they're typically the data sets that are used by many parts of the organisation, have been brought into the platform. I think in the future, and with some of the features that have been talked about today, in particular, you'll see how we'll expand that. And the next part of our strategy is already starting to think about how we can work on connectivity to other data sources rather than having to bring all that data into a central place. And these are just some examples of the kind of innovation and the kind of work that has been driven from the platform. And in some cases, these are pieces of work that just wouldn't be possible within DEFRA without the investment that we've made with our Dash platform. So looking at examples within DEFRA, so new official statistics measuring distance from and access to green spaces. So these are kind of official statistics that get published and they'll be renewed and new series will be created. Modelling the land use implications of different policy ambitions. Land use is a huge topic within DEFRA, so again, we're able to support a really wide range of work with a number of different teams working across common problems. Within our arm's length bodies, so this in Natural England, for example, analysis of acoustic data that they're collecting with sensors from natural habitats, from a range of different habitats, bringing all of that data into the platform and providing them with the tools that they need to be able to analyse that data for the first time. And again, in the Environment Agency, the environmental DNA data. And these last two are really where we're kind of striking at the real value of driving that kind of cross-organisational collaboration. So ecological assessments of natural capital in marine and terrestrial environments, where there are a number of DEFRA group organisations working together on those challenges. and using AI. I'm sure many of you will, if you haven't heard about the AI for Peat project, I don't know where you've been, to be honest, because it's everywhere. It's got real kind of a saturation in exposure because it's such a great use case. But that's been a partnership between Natural England and DEFRA, looking at how we can use artificial intelligence to create for the first time a digital map of our peatlands and their condition. So we can identify where erosion exists and how we can target restoration in that absolutely critical kind of part of our environmental ecosystem. And I'll say very briefly, I'll talk about, I did say it's been saturated, but it is such a great use case. So as I said, peatlands is one of the UK's, one of our kind of most valuable ecosystems, plays an absolutely crucial role in carbon storage and biodiversity. But the challenge that we have is that up to 80% of the peatlands have been degraded by historical drainage, erosion and land use changes, and there isn't a map that exists. You can imagine that without that AI, the kind of previous people would have been going out with a clipboard, basically, and trying to identify where these peatlands existed across the country. So trying to identify where they should target the restoration efforts at that scale, really difficult. So the solution has been, and Databricks have had a huge part to play in this, and I've been very kind of humble just to play a very small role in this success in terms of providing the tooling. Brought together aerial photography and LiDAR data at national scale. Models were trained against that data, real collaborative effort with data scientists in Natural England, DEFRA, and also from Databricks, input from Databricks and Microsoft, to train those models and identify and detect drainage features, and including where the restoration had already occurred. And those results have been sort of scaled up. That processing has taken place to create, for the first time, this national map of peatland and their features. So we think about the positive outcome that has, and the picture there on the slide is that fingerprint of kind of just showing the different types of features that have been kind of understood for the first time and how they overlay. In terms of the outcome, that not only does that save a huge amount of time, because we can kind of generate that view much more quickly, but it's repeatable, and the models that have been generated can now be applied, and that's the next challenge for us. It's working to identify how all the learning that has gone into developing these models can now be applied to other challenges across DEFRA. And if I put myself in the position of a land manager or policymaker, they can now, almost for the very first time, kind of assess where those changes are taking place, assess the change, and also assess the impact of the restoration effort for the very first time. So really, and this is why we often quote AI for Peat. It's a really great use case. So I've talked a little bit about the work that we've done so far and how that is driving kind of innovation and kind of that cross-organizational collaboration, basically helping analysts within the department work more effectively together, making it easier for them. There's lots of potential and lots more that we can do, and I'm just going to give a very kind of quick flavor of some of that. So I talked a little earlier, so I've mentioned the partnership that we have with POSIT and Databricks kind of working in tandem. One of the things that we're doing right now is we're introducing POSIT Workbench into our platform. And that's partly to overcome some of the challenges that users have faced with using RStudio on the Databricks platform, RStudio hosted on the Databricks platform. So it's partly about improving that user experience, but also about kind of really driving adoption and usage of the platform going forward, providing those familiar development environments. Now we've got that connectivity between POSIT Workbench and Databricks. It's a much more powerful experience that can support a really wide range of analysis going forward. So that's something that I'm absolutely hugely kind of excited about, because I think it's going to be an absolute game changer in terms of how our analysts work across the organisation. So really benefiting there from not only the capabilities offered by POSIT, but also the really strong kind of governance features that are locked in through our investment in Unity Catalog. So that's helping organisations across the organisation, like teams across the organisation, manage and share their, not only their raw data, but their data products as well. So they've got a huge amount of control over how those products and their code and their notebooks and their how all of those can be shared going forward. So that's a huge win for us that will be coming in the next few months. And then it'll be about establishing connectivity with other tools that are within the platform. So that's, you know, in the short term, really big focus there on leveraging the capabilities that are offered by POSIT Workbench in tandem with Databricks. As you might imagine, within an organisation our size, we've also got other operational platforms that are being built to satisfy particular operational needs. And following some of this morning's announcements, I think we're going to have to take a step back and really rethink what our approach here is. But we've already started to establish connectivity between Dash and these other platforms, so we're not having to physically move data into Dash. We're actually connecting to that data in situ and providing analysts with the tooling and the compute that they need to be able to access that data. That's saving us a huge amount of time, making it much more efficient because we're able to leverage the investments that are being made not only in these operational platforms, but also Dash. And I'm expecting us to do a lot more. I think as part of our next phase of maturity, I'm expecting us to do a lot more of that kind of going forward. It's kind of working with teams in other parts of the organisation who have their operational systems and making sure that they're able to harness Dash and the tools that we're offering on those systems or on the data that they've got in those systems. But we are, I think, going to have to take a step back and think about this in the context of some of the announcements that are being made. Okay, in terms of the future, and this is very much a kind of what might be rather than this is the design that we're going for and this is how it's going to work. This is very much a hypothetical kind of picture. But going forward, I think there's huge potential in, I think whilst we're delivering a lot of value out of our platform and the investment that we've made with Databricks already, I think we're barely scratching the surface in lots of ways. And I really felt that when I was at the keynote this morning. I think that, there's just so much more potential that we can unlock from kind of, the investment that we're making in the platform. And I can see in the future how we might be, for example, working towards this kind of consolidated sort of virtualized data layer where we're bringing in all that operational data alongside all that analytical data, and we're providing all that analytical tooling on top of that. So it's just some food for thought there about the kind of, what might be the direction of travel going forward. I'm happy to take questions. I've given you some time back, potentially, unless there are lots of questions. Thank you.